I found the wreck easily enough. It was the only red sedan with a crushed hood on the Parker Point Road. In my headlights, the damage didn't look too extensive. The driver had even managed to steer the car onto the muddy shoulder, where it had become mired to its hubcaps. I switched on my blue lights and got out of the patrol truck. My shadow lurched ahead of me like a movie monster. Right off, I saw the dark red pool of blood in the road. There must have been quarts of it. Every ounce in the animal's body spilled onto the asphalt. I also noticed bloody drag marks where someone had moved the roadkill. But the deer itself was nowhere to be seen. The red smears just stopped, as if the carcass had been snatched up by space aliens into the night. Flashlight raised high in my left hand, I approached the wrecked car. The airbags had inflated, but the windshield was intact. So where was the driver? Someone had phoned in the deer car collision. The keys were still in the ignition. Had the driver wandered off with a concussion or just gotten tired of waiting for a delinquent game warden to arrive? It was damned mysterious. No driver, no deer. I was all alone on the foggy road. The call had come in an hour earlier, near the end of a 12-hour shift. My last stop of the day was supposed to be the house of a very tall and angry man named Hank Varnum. He was waiting for me in the foggy nimbus of his porch light. A rangy, raw-boned guy with a face that always reminded me of Abraham Lincoln when I saw him behind the counter of the Kennebec market. Tonight, he didn't give me a chance to climb out of my truck. He just let out a snarl. "Look what those bastards did, Mike!" And he started off into the wet woods behind his house. I grabbed my mag light and followed as best I could. When you were a young Maine game warden, 25 years old and fit, there aren't many occasions when you can truly imagine being old. But this late March evening was one of them. My knees ached from a fall I'd taken earlier that day checking ice fishing licenses on a frozen pond, and the mud sucked at my boots with every step. Varnum had to keep waiting for me to catch up. The grocer walked like a turkey, long-legged, neck slightly extended, head bobbing as he went. But I was too exhausted to find it humorous. Hank Varnum owned something like 70 acres of woods along the Sagauket River in mid-coast Maine, and he seemed determined to lead me over every hill and dale of it. Worse yet, I discovered that my flashlight needed new batteries. The temperature had been hovering around 32 degrees all afternoon, and now the thaw was conjuring up a mist from the forest floor. Fog rose from the softening patches of snow and drifted like gossamer through the trees. After many minutes, we came out of a thicket and intersected a recently used all-terrain vehicle trail. The big wheels of the ATVs had chewed savagely into the earth, splashing mud into the treetops and scattering fist-sized rocks everywhere. The ruts were filled with coffee-colored puddles deep enough to drown a small child. Varnum thrust his forefinger at the damage. "Do you believe this shit?" But before I could answer, he forged off again, turkey-like, following the four-wheeled trail deeper into the woods. I checked my watch. Whatever chance I'd had of catching a movie with my girlfriend Sarah was no more. Since she'd moved back into my rented house last fall, we'd been making progress reconciling our lifestyles, Maine game warden and grade school teacher, or so it seemed to me anyway. Tonight might be a setback. My cell phone vibrated. The display showed the number of the Knox County Regional Communications Center. "Hold up, Hank," I answered. 2754, this is Bowditch. 2754, we've got a deer car collision on the Parker Point Road. Most of my calls were dispatched out of the state police headquarters in Augusta, but I recognized the voice on the radio as being that of Lori Williams, one of the county 911 operators. "Anyone injured?" "Negative." "What about the deer?" "The caller said it was dead." So why was Lori bothering me with this? Every police officer in Maine was trained to handle a deer car collision. Nothing about the situation required the district game warden. "Dispatch, I'm 1020 on the Quarry Road in Kennebec. Is there a deputy or trooper who can respond?" 1023, meaning stand by. I waited half a minute while the dispatcher made her inquiries among the available units. Hank Varnum had his flashlight beam pointed into my eyes the whole time. "Are we just about there, Hank?" I asked, squinting. "It's right around this bend." "Show me." We went on another 400 yards or so, crossing a little trout stream that the ATVs had transformed into a flowing latrine. Then we turned a corner, and I understood the wellspring of Hank Varnum's rage. At one time, the trail had run between two majestic oaks, but no longer. "They cut down my goddamn trees!" The beam of Varnum's flashlight was shaking. He was so mad. The stumps stood like fresh-sawn pillars on either side of the trail, with the fallen trees lying akimbo to the sides. Yellow posted signs were still nailed to their toppled trunks. "First I put up the signs," Varnum explained, "but they came through anyway. Then I dropped a couple of spruces across the trail. They just dragged those aside. So I said, 'All right, this is war,' and I strung a steel cable between the two oaks. You see how much good that did?" In fact, the cable was still attached to one of the fallen trees. I shined my light on the crosshatched tire tracks, feeling a surge of anger at the meaningless waste in front of me. They were beautiful red oaks, more than a century old, and some assholes had snuffed out their lives for no good reason. "Do you have any idea who the vandals are?" "That pervert Calvin Barter, probably. Or maybe Dave Driscoll and that prick son of his. There's a whole pack of them that ride around town on those fucking machines. I swear to God, Mike, I'm gonna string up barbed wire here next." Mad as I was, it was my job to be the voice of reason in these situations. You can't booby-trap your land, Hank. No matter how much you might be tempted, you'll get sued. And you honestly don't want someone to get injured. "I don't?" He rubbed the back of his long neck, like he was trying to take the skin off. "I never had any problem when it was just snowmobiles. It was always fine by me if the sledders used my land. They never did any real damage. But these ATVs are a different story. They want to tear things up. That's part of their fun." His eyes bored into me. "So what can you do for me here, Mike?" Well, I could take some pictures of the tracks and the trees, but there's nothing to connect the ATVs with whoever cut down your oaks. If you could ID the riders coming through next time, we could file trespassing charges. Snapshots would help make the case. "So that's it?" I was about to say something about how I couldn't be everywhere at once, how I relied on citizens to help me do my job, blah, 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 when I heard the roar of distant engines. "That's them!" Varnum said.